You know what you need to do in life. You've known for months, if not years, but despite that, you're one of millions of brilliant Christian men who stay trapped because they overanalyze things. So while mediocre dudes are out there turning their dreams into reality by just taking action. If you're watching this, I'm talking about you, the guy who's read up on both Jordan Peterson and N.T. Wright, who listens to Huberman or the Deep End podcasts before work on weekdays. Your head is full of brilliant knowledge and insight, but you struggle to translate it into making powerful decisions for yourself and others who look to you for leadership. So since last Easter, you've been thinking about this thing that you know in your heart that you want. And every night you go to bed feeling that you wasted another day again. So you checked the boxes of your duties, you honored your principles, but you didn't unleash your full potential. And over that time, you've watched 3 other people take the actions that you've been struggling to get yourself to finally do. You sit on the sidelines while they gain invaluable experience, feedback, and just confidence. Which means some average Joe with half your intelligence just launched the business that you've been researching, or has been having the difficult conversation you've been dodging, and has made the moves that you sense God's calling you to. So you want to know what's going on here? Over the next handful of minutes, I'm going to show you why this keeps happening to you. And I'll show you the 3 biggest shifts that Christian men are making to break free from inner paralysis and get lit the truck up and live with bold, sovereign purpose. My name is Michael Pompeo. I've lived at nearly every extreme you can imagine. From a violent drug user to an eager seminary student to a judgmental street preacher, then a broke ultra-liberal missionary to orphans, and a stressed business partner earning over $700,000 a year. And each stage was an overcorrection to the last. And in every one, I unintentionally hurt people, good people. So I became terrified of screwing up again. I stopped acting with passion, and everything became calculated, measured, analyzed to death. I thought wisdom meant hesitating. It turns out that I was just scared. And that feeling nearly cost me everything, until my mentor showed me the steps that turn mistakes only into lessons, not baggage, and a few other things. And for years now, I've been helping high-performing Christian men to break through similar kinds of invisible mental and emotional barriers that hold them back. So what I've learned from all this might ignite a deep anger within you. I say that because it flies in the face of what your parents and teachers or even wise pastors have told you up until now. It's that your intelligence has become your prison. Your discernment, more often than not, is the source of your downfall, and your need to get it right is keeping you from getting anywhere. The worst part, you're using spiritual language to justify the ways you're keeping yourself stuck. And you know it's true if you have strong feelings about what you know you need to do, but then you let your mind talk you out of following through, allowing it to convince you that you need more data or that later would be better for one reason or another. The strong feeling goes away for a bit. It gets replaced by that sinking feeling in your stomach that comes with the realization that you talked yourself out of taking a necessary action again. So that thing you know you need to do, maybe it's a conversation that could transform your marriage, or stepping into a leadership role that you've been dodging, or that business idea that's burning in your soul, or just finally saying what you actually believe about that controversial topic. The specifics really don't matter. What matters is that you know what needs to happen. But instead of acting, you research and research and research some more. You seek additional counsel, because wise men listen to many advisors, right? You obsess over it from 17 different angles, and I'm just being responsible and thoughtful. So you find new considerations that required more prayer. I don't want to be presumptuous or move ahead of God. I need to make sure it's God's will. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so, because I've been deep inside that myself. So here's the brutal reality. The enemy always packages a lie inside of a truth. So you've turned biblical wisdom into an excuse factory. spiritual maturity into fancy delay tactics. And it's destroying your calling, your leadership, and your peace. Your wife stops asking about your big idea because she's tired of watching you find new reasons to delay the same decision. And it's an amplified version of the feeling inside her when you can't pick a restaurant and defer to her again with, "What do you want, honey?" So God keeps sending you opportunities only for them to get claimed by guys with half your qualifications, but twice your willingness to act despite not having perfect information. So while you watch from the sidelines like a genius bench warmer who's too scared to get in the game, all because you're suffocating under a mountain of pros and cons lists or what-if scenarios that multiply faster than you could ever work through them. Like that business plan that's been sitting in your Google Drive that's been reworked endlessly over 47 different versions, but the last edit was 3 months ago. Now here's something that might really mess with your head. God operates wastefully. And 3 specific Bible passages prove it. Stay with me here. Look at 1 Corinthians 1:18-19. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise. The intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. So God might be less interested in your strategic planning. He's interested in transforming who you are. Here's what most Christian men completely miss about God's nature. He doesn't just believe in love, he is love. So 1 John 3 says he's a father who lavishes love. Lavish means to bestow something in huge amounts. Now follow me on this. God knows the future. There are people who he knows will never choose him. People who won't even see his love as love. They won't follow him. They won't even acknowledge the good things in their life came from him. So from a human perspective, you might feel like continuing to love those people seems like a complete waste for God, right? So why keep showing love to people who will never choose you, who will never even say thank you? Because when you are something, you can't turn it off. There's no condition that could make God stop being himself. No conditions make him stop being loving. He acts from being, not outcomes or conditions. And do you want more evidence of this? Look at the parable of the sower in Matthew 13. Jesus says the sower scattered seeds everywhere. Like the path, wasted. Rocky ground, wasted. Thorns, wasted. Only some fell on good soil and then produced a crop. So what wise and responsible farmer operates like that? But here's the math that'll change everything. Let's say 100 seeds are scattered equally across 4 locations. 25 to the path, nothing. 25 to the rocky ground equals nothing. 25 to the thorns, nothing. 25 to the good soil equals 30, 60, or 100-fold return. So even at the lowest 30-fold return Jesus mentions, 25 seeds becomes 750. So you started with 100, but you ended with 750. That's a 650% ROI on what any purely logical MBA would call wasteful and stupid action. So even with 75% being knowingly wasted, it still led to explosive growth. God didn't minimize risk. He maximizes being. And so one more quick game-changing story to really just solidify this in your mind. Many years ago, there were 2 neighboring nations. One was merciless and militant, heavily populated with fierce warriors. The other was made of peaceful farmers. The warrior nation invaded, tortured and killed women and children, rapidly laid waste to nearly everything. One small farming village remained at the remote edge. A survivor from a destroyed village arrived to them in tears. They just destroyed my village. I lost everything. It was a hostile and vicious army. You're the last ones left, and they're not far behind me. Prepare yourselves for death. The farmers grabbed their shovels and poles and started practicing to fight the warriors. The survivor was bewildered. What are you doing? You're 50 farmers against thousands of trained warriors. You can't stop them from killing and torturing your families. One older farmer stepped forward, looked the survivor dead in his eyes, and with compassion, wisdom, and fierce inner strength, he said, "We don't fight because we can stop the injustice. We fight because we fight injustice." Let that sink in. Like really sink in. They're not attached to the outcome. They're acting from who they are. They're not strategizing victory. They're embodying identity. If you've lost your willingness to act on identity instead of outcomes, you've become the guy who knows all the right answers but lives like he doesn't actually believe any of them. If you've become results focused instead of being focused, then you will never be able to act until you can guarantee results or safety. Conditions will continue to take you out. But God's calling you to act because of who you are, not because you can control what happens next. This principle transformed my life in the most painful way possible. 15 years ago, on a Tuesday morning, I discovered my wife was having an affair. I found out when I had been making excuses for months, telling myself she was acting strange because of the recession, or because we'd moved in with her parents, or because life was intense with 2 young kids. But I confided in my best friend about some of our struggles, and he said I should simply ask her if she's having an affair so that I could know instead of just guessing at what was going on. I sought the truth, and I got it. So when she admitted to her affair, there was no apology. No, "I don't know what got into me. I'll end it. Please give me a second chance." So instead she said, "Yes, we're in love. He asked me to marry him. I'm thinking about leaving you. And until I make that decision, you can wait. You're not allowed to touch me or call me babe because it would interfere while I'm making my decision." Meanwhile, she continued the affair with him while making the decision. So for 4 grueling months, I begged God to bring her back. And she wouldn't end it. She kept stringing me along. So I finally chose divorce. But that first week after the discovery was made, I asked God, help me to see her the way you see her. Change my heart to be like yours towards her. And instead, God showed me something that changed how I see him and me and just what happens in life. You see, most people, after they discover an affair, will jump to conclusions like marriage doesn't work, or women are impossible to please, or something's wrong with me, I can't keep a woman happy, or something's just wrong with her. But God showed me this. The fact was that my wife had an affair, and everything else I concluded from that fact, it was optional, meaningless. There are no inherent meanings beyond the fact itself. It doesn't have to mean marriage doesn't work. Doesn't have to mean women are impossible to please. It doesn't have to mean something's wrong with me, and it doesn't have to mean something's wrong with her. It can mean the opposite. Someone who's had an affair could be more trustworthy after. Having seen the devastation that they caused, they finally choose to lean on God more than ever before. The circumstances are neutral until God writes the story. That's when the breakthrough happened for me. It wasn't because I figured it all out. It was because I stopped thinking that there was like a fixed existing meaning that I needed to find and realized that God was inviting me to co-author the meaning together with him. It could mean whatever he and I wanted it to mean. That's powerful. And that is what I want to offer you today. Stop pretending God hasn't already shown you what to do. You do know. Underneath all the analysis and prayer and counsel seeking, you know. Ask yourself this. If God has already given you enough understanding and resources for your next breakthrough, what would you be pretending not to know right now? What's the first thought that comes to mind? Don't try to analyze it. Just receive it. Now you got it, write it down. Because the breakthrough idea that you just thought of, that is your next move. It probably isn't something that's new to you. You've just been dodging it with spiritual sounding excuses. So what are you pretending not to know? God's already placed it inside you. You're scared because it requires acting like those farmers, fighting injustice because you fight injustice, not because you can guarantee a victorious outcome. Loving wastefully like God does, treating circumstances as meaningless until God authors new meaning with you. The guys who are winning aren't smarter than you. They're not more spiritual. They act, they move, they win. And here's what happens when you make that shift. Picture 6 months from now. That thing that you've been thinking and praying about for 2 years, it's now done. Not because you got more clarity, because you acted on the clarity you already had. Your wife stops rolling her eyes when you say, "Let me think about it," and starts bragging to her friends about her husband who confidently makes things happen. Your kids run to tell their friends things like, "My dad started his own company," instead of explaining why daddy's been working on something for 2 years. Or you're finally doing things with them that you always wanted to do, but didn't because you just made it complicated. You're the guy other Christian men call when they need advice on an important decision that they've been hesitating on. Not the guy who they avoid because he'll give them 17 more things to consider. Or maybe you finally started voicing that strong opinion you've been sitting on. And now you're at the center of the most invigorating conversations happening in your community. People are listening, getting fired up, taking action. So what started as you just speaking up has turned into a real movement that's inspired others to grow in kind. All because you broke free from that complexity trap. But here's the thing. I can't help you if you're still committed to needing to figure it all out first. I only work with men who are done with fancy procrastination. I work with gardeners who are finally ready to scatter seed wastefully like God does. Men who are sick of being the smartest guy in the room but who's paralyzed in inaction. And I'm only taking 30 men this quarter because that's all I can coach without diluting results. And 8 out of those 30 spots were filled in the last 48 hours after my last email. Because here's what I've learned. I can't work with 50 guys who all want to think about it and pray about it some more. That defeats the entire purpose. I need men who are ready to act on what God has already put in them. So on our call, we'll identify the godly-looking lies that are keeping you stuck. You aren't stuck because of a lack of information. You're drowning in information, but starving for courage. Your fear is dressed up as wisdom. We'll uncover what you're pretending not to know, and we'll map out how you can break free by using biblical principles that work. So if you can't afford to waste another year being the genius guy who never takes action, or if your wife can't afford another year watching you overthink instead of leading, if your kids can't afford another year of seeing hesitation instead of decisive, risky action from dad, or if your calling can't afford another year collecting dust while you seek more counsel, then listen, now is a gateway moment for you. If you're still in analysis mode about whether to book this call, you're proving my point right now. Taking something simple and making it complicated. Listen to your gut and your heart instead of your head. See where it leads you for a change. Don't be the guy who overthinks while God waits. The world doesn't need another Christian man who has all the right answers but who's too afraid to live them. The world needs men who fight injustice because they fight injustice, who love wastefully, who act from being instead of outcomes. That's who God created you to be. You're ready to become him. Actually, you're already him. You're just ready to let him out. Or are you going to think about it for another 6 months while some other guy takes the actions that you're dodging? Your breakthrough is one 45-minute conversation away. And if you're sick of waiting, click the link below. Book your call.